AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Scott Tucker Solutions and his show Retirement Decoded. Sunday mornings at 8. Learn more at scotttuckersolutions.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. As of Saturday, early voting in Michigan, Republicans were down 101,000 in 2020. They're down just over 4,200 as of Saturday. So consistent with what we've seen in all the battleground states is that Republicans have made significant gains in closing the gap on early voting, in many cases leading outright the early vote versus Democrats in some of these battleground states. Michigan, the handle on Michigan seems to be like that's the most difficult blue wall state for Trump to secure again, as he did in 2016. Well, that may be the case, but I certainly don't think it's out of reach. Let's find out what our friend Nolan Finley thinks. Nolan Finley is the conservative editorial page editor of the Detroit News. Nolan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Glad to be with you.
So give us your handle on the landscape in Michigan.
Well, I mean, it's just what the polls say, I think. It's dead even. Not much movement. This thing has been tied here off and on for weeks now. And so I couldn't offer a prediction. I've never been involved in an election that appeared this close going into the vote. So expect anything.
Well, what about the auto worker? I mean, you have a number of people that have lost their jobs due to the EV craze and mandates that they want to put in place. And here's, we want to hear from one Macomb County auto worker. He's voting for Trump. He's a black man, first time ever voting Republican.
Macomb County, Michigan. These suburbs just north of Detroit are a blue-collar bellwether. Joseph Knowles about to send a message, about to defy his union leadership, about to vote Republican for president for the first time, about to vote for Donald Trump.
And at this point now, I'm desperate. So I'm willing to try anything right now to make sure that I can fulfill my responsibility and to take care of my wife and kids. That's all I care about.
Knowles is a union auto
Sean
worker,
Fain.
one of 1,100 just laid off.
1,100 laid off. One of 1,100. So you don't think that that's going to move the needle at all?
Well, it could. I think that's what's keeping Trump in this race in Michigan. I mean, this is a race he lost 4 years ago. I think he's tied here not because Donald Trump has changed, but because everything around this state has gotten so much worse, and we've had solid Democratic rule here for the last 2 years, and it's been a disaster. We're one of the few states in the country that isn't growing. I think the second most departures from our state last year. People are looking at Democratic rule both at the state level and nationally and saying, I'll take anything other than what we've had. Inflation here hit hard. The COVID shutdowns hit hard. And people are weary. They're tired of it, and they're making their voices heard. I would suspect now, whether or not there's enough of them to push Trump over the top here. There's been, a lot of shenanigans, if you will, or at least thumb on your scale. Our Secretary of State, a Democrat, kept Robert Kennedy on the ballot, even though she didn't have to, and even though he asked to come off. And so instead of presenting an accurate ballot to voters, she presented one with a candidate who's not even in the race anymore, but who was polling about 4% in our last poll.
But she couldn't get Jill Stein off the ballot, and that should be helpful to Trump, particularly among Muslim residents of Michigan.
And that could make the difference. Muslim Americans, Arab Americans are very angry in this election, very angry at the Biden administration. And whether they vote Republican or not, from Donald Trump's perspective, isn't what's important. Whether or not they vote for Harris, and I don't think they will.
And Rashida Tlaib, it's not that she's a factor. She's just reflective of the factor, right?
Well, I mean, she'll win going away tonight, which, she's my congressman, and, that baffles me. But,
Well,
I don't know that she has the influence she had, but she's certainly an influential voice.
No, but by that I mean, she is reflecting the attitude of her underlying constituency. When you have, for example, the mayor of Hamtramck saying, "I'm not supporting Kamala Harris," and other Muslim leaders saying it. She's not necessarily determinative here because she's reflecting a feeling of being unsettled among her constituents, right?
Right, but she is an influential voice, and we've had, of course, the mayor of Dearborn came out for Harris, so it's not monolithic. That vote won't be, 100% against Harris, but, they were somewhere in the 70s last time around. If that drops significantly, every group that pulls back just a little bit from Harris or from Democrats, it all adds up. Michigan was a tight race in 2020, I think 3 points. And so who knows what'll make the difference, but that's a very narrow margin we're looking at.
You referenced your Secretary of State there, Jocelyn Benson.
Yeah.
She had to address some issues with the Dominion voting machines last week, and I just wonder what your confidence level is. Has it improved or is it diminished in terms of the administration of a free and fair election in Michigan this cycle as compared to 2020?
I think the count will be fair. I think enough safeguards have been put in place, and there'll be poll watchers. It's not the actual voting process that concerns me. It's about everything leading up to it. Mm-hmm. We had a Chinese national, a student at the University of Michigan, who was able to register to vote last week and cast a ballot, and only got caught because he went back to the Secretary of State clerk's office, the local clerk's office, and asked to retrieve his ballot. So who knows how many more of those there are, because we don't require proof of citizenship when we register to vote. And I think that's the kind of thing that erodes confidence in elections.
Oh, yeah. And then also, too, your Secretary of State said election results will not be in. Don't expect them to be in or finalized by Tuesday, that it's going to take until Wednesday, possibly Thursday.
Well, it's a big vote here, but it's not that big. I don't know. With all the early voting we've had 9 days of early voting, and those votes are already in the machine. I can't imagine why it would take so long. We should know just hours after the poll closed, because you'll have almost half the vote already cast and in the machines. You just have to press the button to get the results spit out. So really, I think everybody's a little confused by that.
Yeah.
Here, maybe she's just setting low expectations, and if she comes in at 11 o'clock, as is typical in Michigan, she'll be able to say, "Look how well we did."
Right. What's your assessment of the Trump campaign's footprint and operation in Michigan this cycle as compared to last?
Well, Michigan had a real meltdown in its Republican Party over the last couple of years. Finally got it back on track early this spring with new leadership, but it's hurt them. Most of the major donors had pulled out. I think they're back now. I think Mike Rogers, the Senate candidate, the Republican Senate candidate here, has got an excellent ground campaign, an excellent voter outreach campaign. I think they've taken that all over from Trump and are doing his outreach as well. So I think it's better than it might have been. I mean, as you noted, Republicans are coming out to vote. I mean, I don't think there are many unmotivated voters this year.
And do you see, as sort of the polls indicate, that Mike Rogers' fate as a possible Senate pickup is inextricably linked to Trump? If Trump wins, Mike Rogers probably does. If he doesn't, Mike Rogers probably doesn't.
I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that race and a couple of key congressional races in Michigan will swing on how well Trump does. Now, doesn't Trump have to win to for Rogers to win? No, he's done a lot of good work on his own, but it's got to be close. If we're surprised here tonight and there turns out to be a big Democratic margin at the top of the ticket, I think down ballot will be hit hard.
And President Trump's going to do what he did in 2016 and in 2020. And tonight he's going to have a rally in Grand Rapids around midnight. Are you going to be attending?
It will not. But,
I'd be.
You know, with him, every time he appears these last few weeks, there's as good a chance that he might hurt himself as help himself. I wrote 2 weeks ago that he could probably win this thing if he just get off the trail or stop holding rallies, stop talking, and just maybe go sit down with the voters in small groups like he did in the barbershop in the Bronx a few weeks ago. Every time he makes an appearance like this, he says he has a tendency to say things that the media can twist and turn 100 different ways, and I think he's just better off doing short 20-minute appearances rather than these long, rambling rallies where it's almost certain he's going to say something that'll be turned against him.
Or maybe just finance a Lizzo appearance in Detroit again on behalf of Kamala Harris. That may serve him as well as not attending himself.
I think you got Harris has got Bon Jovi today. I think.
Oh boy!
This big celebrity turnout for her, and I don't know that moves the needle much. But Trump can have a disciplined rally tonight in Grand Rapids. It'll help him. If he goes wandering and sticks his foot in it, it'll hurt him. There's always a risk when he takes the stage.
Well, in just Detroit specifically, because we were talking to Jim Lee from Susquehanna a bit earlier in the show, talking about for example, black early vote in Philadelphia is maybe not where it needs to be for Kamala Harris. Where's Detroit in the sense of the enthusiasm for Kamala Harris? Is there any? Are you picking up any concerns from the Kamala campaign that there's again an enthusiasm gap in an urban center that should be a base for her?
Well, I mean, obviously they're concerned. They were here yesterday talking to black churches. They hadn't been here much at all throughout the campaign. So, yeah, there's concern there. And I don't think we're going to know until the vote's cast today what the black vote does and what black male voters do. I think in polls they're showing a more willingness to vote Republican than they ever have. Whether they actually go to the polls is the big question, and how they vote once they get there is the other. And I don't know anyone can say that for sure. But if they vote Republican in the numbers that have been suggested by some of the polling, I think it's hard then, particularly without the Muslim vote, it's hard for Kamala Harris to win here. But, you're also going to have a whole lot of ballot harvesting by Democrats on university campuses today. It's already, or tomorrow, and it's already going on. So who knows what they'll do to counter their losses.
Nolan Finley, conservative editorial page editor of the Detroit News. Nolan, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Crime is up in Illinois, and I'm not sitting back to wait and watch dangerous, radical left policies destroy Kane County. I'm Andrew Sosnowski. I have over 35 years of experience with prosecutions of crime, advocating for victims and children. I'm the independent prosecutor in the race for Kane County State's Attorney, and I will work to end cronyism in the office. I will root out the causes of crime, collaborate with law enforcement, and be the lead county prosecutor who will fight for our freedom, safety, and security. Vote for the only law and order candidate, me, Andrew Sosnowski, for Kane County State's Attorney on Tuesday, November 5th. Early voting starts September